Hello again, everybody. We're busy looking at Psalm 23, and I'm going to just give you some historic background as to when David wrote this psalm. So David composed this famed psalm during one of the most dangerous, discouraging periods of his life. He was a fugitive fleeing from King Saul and his army. So when he says here, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. I mean, here's David in an absolute desperate situation, fleeing for his life. And so the history behind this says that in desperation, David hid himself in a desolate forest, parched and dry like baked earthenware. But God did not forsake David. He soaked this dry forest with a moisture which had the flavor of heaven, making even the grass and leaves of the forest succulent and edible. This showed David that God supports and nourishes at all times, even when your chances of survival seem to be non-existent. David does not confine his inspiration to himself. He utilizes it to sing for all of Israel, recalling how God provided for the entire nation throughout its 40-year sojourn in the wilderness. And so one of the rabbis explained that he prepares, but he says here that the psalm contains 57 words, and the numerical equivalent of the word nourishes. This rabbi says those who recite the psalm and live by its message will always be blessed with ample provisions. So that gives a new meaning to the psalm for me when I made this investigation, that actually it was in one of the most turbulent times of David's life. I actually looked this up too in another concordance that's not rabbinical. Let me just see here if I can find this here now. I will find it. Okay, I'm going to just read from here now. The Lord is my shepherd. This name for Jehovah is R-A-A-H. It's the Hebrew words, Jehovah is my Ra, the Lord is my shepherd. The existing one, the ever-living one. Certainly I will be with you. I am present is what I am. My faithful presence. And then the word shepherd is my feeder, my nourisher. He keeps me. He tends me. This term shepherd describes God as the supreme provider of all human needs. He is my shepherd, direct and personal, relational, up close and personal. And so in Genesis 48:15, Jacob blessed Joseph and said, God himself, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac lived and walked habitually, God himself, who has been my shepherd and has led me and fed me from the time I came into being, until this day. Jacob knew the Lord as his shepherd who fed him. And so in Mark 6:34, Jesus came out and saw people and was moved with compassion because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And in John 10, verse 11, Jesus says, yeah, I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays down his very life for the sheep. Verse 14, I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I am laying down my life for the sheep. Praise the Lord. And I shall not want, the Living Bible says, because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. It's the most amazing statement. Never will we find ourselves in a situation where something we really need is not available. I shall not lack. Lack is a Hebrew word to be without, to have need, and to be in want. And the opposite of lack is abundance. I shall lack nothing describes God's boundless generosity. And we find a similar statement in Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 7. The Lord has watched over you and blessed you every step of the way for all these 40 years as you have wandered around in this great wilderness, and you have lacked nothing in all that time. The Message Bible says, God, your God, has blessed you in everything you've done. He's guarded you in your travels through this immense wilderness. For 40 years now, God, your God, has been right here with you. You haven't lacked one thing. I mean, that's really it's always such a thing to me that God is so powerful. He's so loving that even taking care of a murmuring, disobedient people for 40 years, how great his love was, is that he took care of them. He brought them out of Egypt and then took care of them for 40 years. So I think we're going to kind of wrap up here for Psalm 23. And when I see you again, we'll go to Psalm 91 and Psalm 96. These are all Psalms from Sounds of Psalms, and Psalm 103. And I've got some interesting things to share with you about these Psalms. See you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.